by an oracle of wood and gold, but by the voice of man. The gods have spoken to the Greeks and kindred tongues through image made by man, but Allah the One now speaks to man through YEHOSHUA, the only Son, who was and is and evermore will be. This oracle will fail. The living oracle of Allah, the One, will not fail. Apollo knew the man who spoke. He knew it was the Nazarite by himself. He knew it was the Nazarene who once had taught the wise men in the Acropolis and had rebuked the idol worshippers upon the Athens beach. And in a moment, Jehoshua stood before Apollo and the silent brotherhood and said, "Behold, I have risen from the dead with gifts for men. I bring to you the title of your vast estate. All power in heaven and earth is mine. To you, I give all power in heaven and earth. Go forth and teach the nations of the earth the gospel of the resurrection of the dead and eternal life through Yehoshua, the love of Allah made manifest to men." And then he clasped Apollo's hand and said, "My human flesh was changed to higher forms by love divine, and I can manifest in flesh or in the higher planes of life at will. What I can do, all men can do. Go teach the gospel of the omnipotence of men." Then Yehoshua disappeared, but Greece and Crete and all the nations heard. Claudius and Juliet, his wife, lived on the Palatine in Rome, and they were servants of Tiberius. They had been in Galilee, had walked with Yehoshua by the sea, had heard his words and seen his power. And they believed that he was Yehoshua made manifest. Now, Claudius and his wife were on the Tiber in a little boat. A storm swept from the sea, and the boat was wrecked, and Claudius and his wife were sinking down to death. Now Yehoshua came and took them by the hand and said, "Claudius and Juliet, arise and walk with me upon the waves." And they arose and walked with him upon the waves. 1,000 people saw three walk on the waves and saw them reach the land. And they were all amazed. And Yehoshua said, "You men of Rome, I am the resurrection and the life. They that are dead will live, and many that shall live will never die. By mouth of gods and demigods, Allah spoke unto your fathers long ago. But now he speaks to you through perfect man. He sent his son, Yehoshua, in human flesh to save the world. And as I looked from the watery grave and saved these servants of Tiberius, so Yehoshua will lift the sons and daughters of the human race. Yea, every one of them from darkness and from graves of carnal things to light and everlasting light. I am the manifest of love raised from the dead. Behold my hands, my feet, my side, which carnal men have pierced. Claudius and Juliet, whom I have saved from death, are my ambassadors to Rome. And they will point the way and teach the gospel of the holy bread and the resurrection of the dead. that was all he said. But Rome and all of Italy heard. The priests of Heliopolis were in their temple, met to celebrate the resurrection of their brother Nazarite. They knew that he had risen from the dead. The Nazarite appeared and stood upon a sacred pedestal on which no man had ever stood. This was an honor that had been reserved for him, who first would demonstrate the resurrection of the dead. When YEHOSHUA stood upon the sacred pedestal, the masters stood and said, "All hail!" The great bells of the temple rang, and all the temple was ablaze with light. And YEHOSHUA said, "All honor," right here. And YEHOSHUA said, "All honor to the masters of this temple of the Son. In flesh of man, there is the essence of the resurrection of the dead. This essence, quickened by the Holy Breath, will raise the substance of the body to a higher tone and make it like the substance of the bodies of the plains above, which human eyes cannot behold. There is a holy ministry in that the essence of the body cannot be quickened by the Holy Breath until the fixed is solved. The body must be disintegrated, and this is death. And then upon these pliant substances, Allah breathes, just as he breathed upon the chaos of the deep when the worlds were first formed. And life springs forth from death. The carnal form is changed to form divine. There, concept, the will of man makes possible the actions of the Holy Breath, when will of man and will of Allah are one. In this, we have the chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death, the mystery of the etheric life. My human form was wholly given to bring my will to tune with the etheric will. When this was done, my earth's tasks all were done. And you, my brothers, know full well the foe I had to meet. You know about the victories in Gethsemane, my trials in the courts of men, my death upon the cross. You know that all my life was one great drama for the sons of men, a pattern for the sons of men. I have lived to show the possibilities of man. What I have done, all men can do. And what I am, all men shall be. The masters looked. The form upon the sacred pedestal had gone. But every temple priest and every living creature said, "Praise Allah." Islam, Islam, Islam. I am Dr. Marvin Edwards Page, Consul General of the Texas Territory. Today is December 6th, 2025. We give honors to our National Assistant Grand Secretary of the State, Dr. Benja Anil Bay, for the opening of our meeting according to law. And honors to Dr. Marvin Edwards Page, Consul General of Texas, for the reading of the chapter of the week of our Holy Quran and taking registration. Our host for tonight's Moorish Perspectives class is our National Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shedwa Mentiel Sepsuel. The subject coming from I 31. In this, we have the ministry of mortal life, the ministry of death, and the mystery of the deific will, of deific light. And at this time, we will now call to the floor our natural grand speak of North America. Are you there, Godman?
Unmuted. Islam, can you hear me, Grand Man?
Yes, sir. You're loud and clear. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. That means Moorish America can hear us. Islam, Islamism without the schism. But let us rise upon the seven within the unbroken circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution, and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything that our holy prophet brought to exhume us as a nation. You know, we want to welcome you to another Moorish Prospectus. I'm your host instructor, Dr. Shahid Imani Amohadi Shabazel. And my ancient Comedian high name being the same as Dr. Shedwa Mentiel Mohed Shepsuel. And Moorish kin, you know, we most definitely have a grand drawing to bring forth on the manifest. Indeed, you know, hopefully one that will elevate us in consciousness, you know, and elevate us in making us better in our ways, acts, and deeds as it relates to dealing with this science that we call Moorish. You know, praise be to Allah, Islamism without the schism. We on the manifest to bring our people the truth. You know, and who better to teach us the truth, you know, than us, ourselves. You know, this is what we are here to demonstrate. And like I say, our intent is to make the measure plain so that our family can get some divine insight when it comes to dealing with whatever it is that we have come to represent to our people. You know, we learn in our teaching that signs and symbols are for conscious mind and men and women of understanding. We have been given various motifs, you know, to motifs as examples, so to speak, you know, to give our people some grand insight into everything it is that we are rather have been trying to bring on the manifest. Praise be to Allah. You know, Allah is definitely leading on and victory is sure. You know, and for those who may not be familiar, you know, with what we call motif is, we're not saying mufti, we're saying motif. You know, that's M-O-T-I-F. It is a decorative design or a pattern, you know, or a distinctive feature or a dominant idea in an artistic literary composition. You know, our ancestors would call this in some cases didactic art. You know, in other words, in symbolism, you know, there's a pattern or a design. It is a logo, it's an idea, it's a concept, you know, of what our people would also call logograms, so to speak. You know, they represent works of art, you know, that are important and noticeable as elements or features that typically appears throughout a particular work. And you can find these motifs as they surface in the lesson or this pattern. You know, we know that we are told that man needs a pattern, you know, for his life. And so that's what these symbolisms and the symbolic expressions represent when we deal with the treasures, of our Father. Make sure you share if you're watching this video live too, family, so that our other family can check in. But our subject title will be coming from chapter 41. YEHOSHUA appears fully materialized before Apollo in the silent brotherhood in Greece. Our ayat, if you are watching, is 41. In this we have the chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death, and the mystery of deific life. You often hear me quote this is special measure, Moorish King. And whether you are looking at it from a scriptural biblical standpoint or a comedic standpoint, man himself becomes the motif, or he becomes the sign and the symbol that represents a symbol of progress. Man himself is the supreme sign, that represents the symbol of progress. So we have various symbols that we use in the workshop of the mind with thought is used to build character. There's a drawing in relation to dealing with the chemistry of mortal life that brings us into the 11th rung of, our 12-step ladder, where we deal with science. You see, the ministry of death brings us into religion. So that's science, religion, and deific life is that which brings us into the reality of all it is that we have been seeking, or everything it is that we have sought by being here, on the plane of things made manifest. So this is a powerful demonstration, Moorish King, that we are getting ready to go into. And we're going to put some things out here in the visual for our Moorish kin to see. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, for those who can see. Oh, my bad. There we go, right there. And those who don't see, you can go see or get a visual by going into Facebook. I put the link out there where anybody can really get on it. It's sent out to everybody, so it's in your email. But if you don't want to come on the panel, you can most definitely go into the social media, YouTube, or you can go on Facebook and click on the link and see there. But nevertheless, you will hear what it is that I'm presenting. I'm going into the word Adama. I want to start with this word Adama, and I'm actually going into the Arabia. In the definition of Adama, it states that it means to reconcile, to be brown, Adam. It means human skin. It means human being. It means man. It means person. It means intelligent person. It means brown man, brave man, human race. It means mankind. It means civilized person. Now, intelligent person and civilized person, when you look at these two definitions here, we can see that in order for one to gain some type of intelligence, one has to learn or go through a particular process that would allow one to progress, into becoming more intelligent. You see, civilized person would be the epitome of intelligence after one has become intelligent And if they are civilized, then they have the knowledge to be able to civilize the society, that is in their midst. It also says a chief honest person, a kind and polite person who is created from different substances. So we see the makeup as it relates to the chemistry of the mortal life. A person created from different substances: earth, air, water, fire, ether. You see, man is not the body nor the soul, so we deal with mental, physical, and spiritual. These are different aspects of a person. Also, it is a person in possession of different powers. We often hear us talk about saving power. You see, but these are powers, or a power, if you will, that exert itself, or the powers exert themselves in plural. A power that exerts itself for the individuals or individual at the will of the user or the users. So the power is already present. The saving power is a part and parcel of who you are. But have you tapped into it? So it says, one who enjoys the comforts of life. One who is by nature social and hard. And most of the time when we come through life, it is the nature of life that causes man to become, either social in communication or hard in their communication. One who has heirs or descendants, so to speak. Adam, who lived about 6,000 years ago, is generally taken to be the proper name for the first human being. But the Holy Quran does not affirm that he was the first man. A lot of our people have been taught this. They talk about a first Adam and a second Adam in the Piscean records. First being, as they call them, a living being, and the second being one that is a life-giving soul, as they would say. And they would tell you where the first Adam was representing, Adam in the Garden of Eden 6,000 years ago. And then they'll say the second Adam, the life-giving soul, was YEHOSHUA, or Christ. This is what people would tell you about the Old Testament. But that is exegesis, that's interpretation. Truth be told, the first Adam, that was, a created being, a living being, represents one that is known as Adam Kadman. Kadman actually means, it actually coincides with the Arabic word Kadim, which is actually an attribute of Allah, which means the first. It also means ancient. It means man of the East, or original man. But nevertheless, this word is used in the Piscean records. In Proverbs 8, it talks about one that was there with the Creator from the beginning. So it is this particular man that we refer to as spirit man, that was made in the image of the great God, Adam Kadman. And Adam Harishun, which is the physical man, that is the second Adam, truthfully. He is the one that became a life-giving soul, so to speak. And he is the one, that manifests on this, what they call the sixth day. Whereas Adam Kadman existed from the very beginning with the great God. Adam Kadman being in existence with the great God, this original man, took part in creation. He was among the expressions of what we call the seven Elohim. This is why they express this in the Piscean records along the line, of an eagle-headed being, ox-headed being, lion-headed being, and then you have the man. And if you were to eliminate these letters that become manifest after the first letter, just like we do with arm, leg, arm, head, and we find the law, we will see, E, In the eagle, we have E, lion, pardon self. That should have been stated earlier, but we put them in a different order. The lion is the L, and the ox, is the O, and the M is man. So that would be ELOM, which if you place Hu, which is a sacred name of the great God Allah there, which represents the holy breath, Hu also represents he who brought everything into creation. If you were to place that, in between the letters L and O, we will find that we have Elohim, so to speak, as we would say. So who is the great God? The other among the 7 created spirits, man, would be Adam Kadman. And these different expressions of Elohim also correspond with the elements of creation. One corresponds with earth, one corresponds with air, one corresponds with fire, one corresponds with water, and one corresponds with ether. The ether would correspond with who? All you have to do is study the nature of the eagle. They fly high. You see? So it's easy to connect that to the air hump. The lion is fiery. So it's easy to connect the lion to fire, right? The ox, deals with the earth aspect, mostly dealing with physical exertion and strength. And man himself, when we get into the expression of water, represents the outflow of knowledge. But it is the ether that unite the elements that life is able to exist, in a concrete form. Ether would be synonymous, in the scientific realm with what we call the quantum realm. And everything that connect these things that you can't see with the physical eye, just by looking at it, you see, but these things, as they manifest, we can see how they influence the plane of things made manifest. And that's how we know they are present. We know the power of the wind because of the way that the wind blows. We can only see the effect of the wind in the direction the wind blows if we look at the trees in the way that they lean. We can see, fire and what is brought forth, or the heat from the sun, as a result, of basically the effects of that heat that we feel. We can feel it, and sometimes if you look at a road when it's real hot, you can see the waves of the heat. So we know it's present. Same thing with water. We can see water, as it manifests out of clouds. You don't know, the time when it's going to rain, but you know that when it rained, it was a result of condensation. This is by observing creation. So I'm showing you that there are causes behind everything in creation as it relates to cause and effect. We have been taught to look at the effect and dismiss the cause in Western science. And the same thing, as we go on, dealing with these different elements, earth, we can see earth because it's right there in front of us. You can, if you're standing outside, you can touch it with the palms of your hand. When you deal with the ether that vibrate, though, this goes into a knowledge that transcends the plane of things made manifest when we talk about the ethers of the native plane. But yet there is one common ancestor that is divine, that we can all trace ourselves back to as it relates to the ethers, and that represents spirit man, which is also the universal common ancestor, according to our model armor that we have, placed before our peers, and after being reviewed, we didn't have any pushback in relation to it. But let us go on. It says the Adam who lived about 6,000 years ago is generally taken to be the proper name for the first human being. But the Holy Quran does not affirm that he was the first man or that there was no creation before him. Biblically, they'll tell you, well, yeah, creation came 6,000 years ago. But the Holy Quran, the Grand Quran of Muhammad, does not confirm this, nor does our Moorish Holy Quran say this, because we say that time never was when man was not. And if there was a time where things begin, then there's a time when things will come to an end. Spirit man, you can't circumscribe him by time, just as you can't circumscribe the great God Allah by time, because spirit man is a part of the great God Allah, a thought of the great God Allah made manifest in human flesh. So if you can't circumscribe the thought of God, then how can you circumscribe spirit man? Spirit man has no limitation as it relates to being bound to this human flesh. There's a line that unites one in the divinity of the matter. It is what we call a deific line, deific tie, deific will. A tie that cannot be seen with carnal eyes. So it says, but the Holy Quran does not affirm that the first man, that was the first man of 6,000 years ago, or that there was no creation before him. So it's letting you know that the Grand Quran don't say it was no creation before this 6,000-year-old Adam. Because we know that there was an original man, spirit man, that was on the manifest, that was created according to the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verses 4 through 7. This man came into being before the plants, before the trees, before anything came on the manifest. We already quoted Proverbs 8, which speaks of one being there with the great God Allah in the beginning of creation. They use the word Kadam. We already told you Kadam in relation to Kad, man, has to do with what we call the original man. This has been before us for years and we've never seen it. So it goes on to our definition, and it states the word Khalifa. We heard Allah say in Surah 230 that he was going to place a Khalifa in the earth. The Khalifa really being placed in the earth represented spirit man being placed, in this earthbound body, truth be told. Most of us look at that as just man being placed on the physical earth. But what about spirit man being placed in this earth that we call the body? So the word Khalifa used for Adam in the Quran, Surah 2, Ayat 30, is a reference to the fact that he was a remnant or successor of an old race and was selected to bring into being a new moral revolution, a cycle age. A cycle age. And we measure time by cycle ages. So it states the word Khalifa is also used for one who comes after and stands in the place of someone who precedes him. So who was it that came before this Adam of 6,000 years ago? It was the Khalifa that was placed, later into that physical Adam, but existed first as spirit man. This is why the great God Allah in Surah 15 in the Grand Quran, when he told the angels that I'm about to create a man, and fall down into obeisance unto him, prostrate before him. This is the only time the angels were given, instruction to prostrate toward anything other than Allah. This was the first act, where the first man, spirit man, became the Qibla. Qibla means direction. So if Allah was telling the angels to prostrate before this man, he wasn't talking about the physical flesh that came with the second Adam. He was talking about the spiritual station that existed with him from the beginning. It was a portion of himself. He said that he breathed his Ru'Allah into man. Ru'Allah is the spirit of Allah. So he was basically telling the angels to prostrate before that part which was of himself that he was placing in this Khalifa that would be on the manifest. I ain't making this stuff up. Go look it up. He was talking about the divine ruler in the man because he knew what he would place in this physical vessel. That's why he said, know for surely that I know what you know not. When the angels asked the question, will you place therein one that will make mischief and shed blood? He knew that this man was to be the executive ruler of his creation. He knew that this man, he would appoint him as Lord of the plane of his own soul, so that he would be able to make room for improvement, and Lord of the plane of things made manifest, so that everything in creation would honor his bid. That is the power that he invested in man. That's the title that was given to man as a title to his vast estate. Not just some earthly estate that has to do with corporate paperwork, but a vast estate that has to do with man being a ruler of the macrocosm and the microcosm. Islam, the word for Khalifa, we find in our definition, is also used for the one who comes after and stands in the place of someone who precedes him. Ibn Abbas, a scholar of Islam, says that there were races known as the Jinn, the Him, and the Din that lived before Adam. He's talking about the Adam of 6,000 years ago during this time. You know, in the biblical context, they refer to this as, you know, Neanderthal. They don't use that word. They really call them Nephilim, you know, and so forth and so on. But, they talk about the different groups of angels, cherubim, seraphim, all types of measures. But, the jinn and the him and the din are different types, but they are races nevertheless. But they lived too before Adam, and maybe he was referring to Neanderthals and similar other races. This is what Ibn Abbas says. It says, great Muslim scholars were of the view that there were hundreds of thousands of Adams before this Adam, whose reference is made in the Quran. Adam represents new beginnings. Adam, the name Adam, represents cycles, civilization, right? So each new cycle, as it relates to the progression and the unfoldment of man, would represent a new dispensation of the mind as it relates to man's development. This is what we call an evolution of the mind, not to be confused with the Darwinian theory of one coming up out of the waters, and mutating from other different forms of life into, the last form as an ape and then a human being. No, we're not talking. We're talking about the evolution of man's consciousness, that intelligence that we referred to earlier. It says, Ma'ani, the world has passed through different cycles of creation, and civilizations. And this Adam is only the first link in the present cycle. They're speaking of the 6,000 year cycle. The biblical cycle that deals with 6,000 hasn't even become complete when it comes to a cycle age. Cycle age is around 25,000 years. So look at how many years they are from having a complete cycle. Yet we are told scientifically that one of the oldest men that were ever found and they refer to him now as what they call a Homo erectus, a Homo sapien. But that particular man was known as what they called the Atlanthropus Mauritaniacus, the Atlantean of Mauritania, which is in the region of the Atlas Mountains, or the same region that they call the Richat structure, which they said is the area where the Atlanteans were. So this particular man, that, was in this area. They have one that they say is the oldest in this particular area in time, known as the Jabir Uhud, and they say and they found him in this region. They say he was 350,000 years old. That's the oldest attested Homo erectus, a human that they found. That's just that they have found. Anything before that, they begin to talk about apes and monkeys and all that type of stuff, which ain't got nothing to do with us. Even when you go into the history of the Anunnaki, and it speaks of the Anunnaki, you go into their history. A lot of people was thinking that the Anunnaki created man from an ape, and that is not the case. The Anunnaki tried to utilize the ape to create a being, and it was an imperfect being, and it became a monstrosity. So eventually, according to the history of the Atrahasis, or the records of the epics of Gilgamesh, the Anunnaki actually had to take the womb of an Anunnaki goddess to make the perfect human being, which became known as Adapa, which was their version of an Adam. And also the Anunnaki were not working on their own. They had discussions among themselves. This is why you hear the term in the Piscean records that is a missing link to that history. They say, let us make man in our image. The Anunnakis had a discussion among themselves, according to, the Atrahasis and the epics of Gilgamesh. And in those particular documents, they disputed among themselves whether they should even take part in trying to demonstrate this, as it would offend the all, the one. So when people think the Anunnakis created man, and that they didn't have a supreme being, they believed in a supreme being as well. The Anunnakis wasn't a group of beings that come on the manifest and didn't believe in a supreme being. They believed in one that was called the all, the one, the source. This is the same teaching that you will find as El being present among the Elohim, in the book of Genesis. El for the supreme being before they use the name Yahweh, and then when Yahweh come on the manifest, they start using the term Yahweh Elohim, which was God along with the plurality of the beings, or the judges, sometime they would call them. When it said that, gods and so forth and so on, that's the word they use, Elohim. But you shall die like men. What is it that is about man that made him God-like? What does it mean for man to be made in the image of God? Remember, I told you, Adam, the physical Adam of 6,000 years ago in this present cycle, was made in the image of Adam Kadman. Adam Kadman is the one that was made truly in the image of God, because this is spirit man. We know the great God is not carnal. Man only became a vessel that expressed arm, leg, arm, head. But the true essence is the spirit. So it says Adam is only the first link in the present cycle in civilization, and not the very first human being in God's creation. The Holy Quran does not follow the Bible in holding that the world began with the birth of Adam. Neither the Holy Quran claim that all mankind who are now found in different parts of the world are the progeny of the self-same Adam, or that the races which lived before this Adam was entirely swept away before he was born. Adam was not the first man. Mankind existed even before him. He was a Khalifa, a successor, who followed someone. Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi, another Moorish, scholar, so to speak, as we call him because he taught Tasawwuf. The great Muslim mystic says that he saw a tablet of a building which showed that the building was erected hundreds and thousands of years ago. Again, he says that once he saw himself in a vision performing pilgrimage with some other people. I inquired one of them, "Who are you?" This is what he asks of the people that he's seen in his vision. He said, of your old ancestors. He says, "How long is it since they died?" I asked him. And the man replied, "More than 40,000 years. But this period is much more than that. What separates us from Adam?" Said I. The man replied, "Of which Adam are you speaking? About that Adam who is nearest to you, or of some other?" Then I recollected the saying of the Holy Prophet to the effect that God had brought into being no less than 100,000 Adams. And between each and every Adam, there's a period of 17,000 years. Now imagine that. Multiply 17,000 years times 100,000 Adams and see what the math is. And that's the period between them. So that is saying that man is more ancient than you think he is. And remember, we say time never was when man was not. So that means man has been here, or he was, is, and evermore to be. He's from the never ending of the past to the never ending days to come. He's been on the manifest. In ancient Kemet, they would have referred to this in time as it relates to what they call Zep-Tepi. You see? But it says, "And I said to myself, perhaps these people who are said to be the ancestors of mine were of the previous Adams." In plural now. So it says, as referred to in Surah 2, Ayat 30, he could not be the work of one person. The reference is the shedding of blood of man by man. So the angels or the Malaika had to have seen wars that took place between man. If you go into the Atrahasis and the epics of Gilgamesh, they fill in the blanks, and there was plenty warfare that took place between the Anunnaki. But it says in 7:10-11, addressing the people, God says, "We have indeed established you in the earth, giving you power therein." See, what kind of power? It had to be saving power. That's the only power worthy of note. We're going to get into how you get this saving power, how you return to this power. That's what we want to talk about in relation to dealing with our subject matter, and how it is that YEHOSHUA was able to do the things that he was able to do. And a lot of masterminds that came before it. But it says, "Giving you power and provided for you therein various means of sustenance." The great God Allah is the one that gave us sustenance. Yet we have man, who corrupted this, by making man a slave to man, and then charging man, for his labor, so that man may pay bills that man created. In food that has been given to you freely, man has been given a price even for that. Land that has been given you freely as a title to your vast estate, you being taxed for that. Even to the extent of the air you breathe, man is being taxed for that. those things and herbs that are used to heal you and later process to become medicinal measures, you get charged for that. So we see how the carnal mind, has diverted away from the natural expression. It says, we did determine you, then we gave you shape, and then said to the angels, make submission to the children of Adam. So they all submitted, they prostrated, but not Iblis. He didn't make sajda or sujood. He did not and would not be of those who submit. He didn't want to honor the God in man. Now think of this mentality. Even when it comes to the carnal mind of our people, if they run into one of righteousness, in order for them to feel comfortable attacking a righteous man, they have to deconstruct that man. They have to tear the character of that man down. And then they feel justified in the act. But they can't commit these wicked and heinous acts against a man that is deemed righteous, because it's not in the nature of one, to do harm to one that's righteous. So you got to demonize the man. You have to come into a will, of hating, slandering, and so forth and so on. And this makes you more comfortable. We see this even when it comes to dealing with relationship between, two that are in relationship. In order for one to really cut ties and sever ties, they have to demonize their companion. And then they justify. This is the way the mind is. If somebody has a thought of jealousy towards you, they have to demonize you in order to express that thought so that they don't feel guilty about it. This is because it's not in the nature of one to be wicked. So Iblis, he didn't want to submit to the God in man. It says these verses also point to the same conclusion, that human beings were already living on this earth, and it was after the creation of the human beings and not just Adam when angels received this order. The garden which Adam was bidden to leave in Surah 7, Al-Araf, the heights, Ayat 24, was not the heaven or paradise of the hereafter, because the paradise is a place from which nobody has ever turned out. So when it talk about them being kicked out of heaven, this is not the paradise that one goes to when they leave the physical, as we state. You see, a state of peace and consciousness. We call it in Kemet Seket Allah, Seket Aru, third heaven. Remember, heaven is a state of mind. When it says in Surah 24 in the Grand Quran, Al-Nur, the Surah of the light, it says Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The heavens represents your mind. The earth represents your earthbound body. So when Adam fell, it states that he forgot. To forget has to do with a mindset. They said that he slipped as he forgot. He slipped away from the God. You notice most of the time when we get in trouble is because we forget. We, a thought slips our mind. And it will cause us, to not be on our job or not be on our post, so to speak. But anyway, this paradise is not the one, that was eternal, because Adam would have not been cast out of that. It was a state of mind where he fell. And in the great God Allah ain't the one really that cast him down, because in the Grand Quran, it says we created man in the best of modes. You see, it was him, who basically cast himself into the abyss of the lowest of the low. It tells you in the Grand Quran as well that, whatever good comes to man come from Allah. Whatever evil come to man come from his own soul. But the soul itself consists of levels and degrees. You heard me talk about them before. The soul is called nafs or anfusihum. They mention the expression of 7, but the basic aspect dealing with the doctrine of the Grand Quran, they talk about nafs amara, nafs lawama, and nafs mutmaina. And nafs amara is what we call bestiality. Nafs lawama is what we call consciousness. And nafs mutmaina is felicity. So this is a 3-step ladder in relation to the soul of man. What are the actions of the soul? Thinking, willing, reason, understanding, remembrance. So when man fell, he fell, within his consciousness. You see? But it says the word Adam stands also for the children of Adam and for the human being who is the object, the crown, and the acme of all creation. Surah 17, ayat 70. And whose creation became complete, listen, after a process of gradual development and evolution by Rab, who fosters and brings up and regulate the things from the crudest state to that of the highest perfection. This goes back to those various different cycles. Remember, there's 17,000 years between each atom, 100,000 atoms. So there was an evolutionary process that took place here that has to do with the consciousness of man. He had to come from a crude state into being, as it states, a living soul, a life-giving soul. In order to be a life-giving soul, you have to have life in you. So again, it says, this crude state is that of the highest perfection in such a manner is to make it attain one condition after another until it reaches its goal of completion. So each of us have been given unlimited capacity, to go into means of progress. None of us are limited. None of us are have-nots when it comes to being able to unfold and be greater tomorrow than we were today. It all has to do with our will of unfoldment. It states Rab, and this is one of the attributes of Allah, Al-Rab, Rabbil Alameen, Lord of all the worlds, is the author of all existence, who has not only given to the whole creation its means of nourishment, but has also beforehand ordained each sphere of capacity within that sphere, provided the means by which it continues to attain gradually to its goal of perfection. So it's in our nature to unfold as our God unfolds, as our knowledge of God unfolds. It even states in the teachings of Al-Islam, know me before you worship me. It also states that it is a sin for man not to know the great God. It states by the use of the word Rab. Our prophet told us, know thyself and thy Father God Allah. The Holy Quran hints at the law of evolution, which is working in the universe. The law of evolution that works in the universe, shows unlimited capacity for the universe to continue to manifest things. So if man is the microcosm, a mini universe of the macrocosm, which consists of multiverses, wow, then man, that's some infinite expression. There's no single word in English carrying the significance of the word Rob. Iraq is considered by archaeologists to be the place where our Adam lived. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have described the Euphrates as the river of the garden referred to in the place where Adam lived. If you know anything about the four rivers, again, when we get into the acronymic expression, the motif, Euphrates, Gihon, Pishon, Tigris or Tigris. When you isolate all letters except the first, you get E-G-P-T, Egypt. But that's a whole nother measure. So the word Adam is being used in the Holy Quran about 25 times. So now that you have this insight, we want to go into another area here. Because I got a few things I had put together. Let me make sure that you see my screen sharing as well. Okay, I see my family. Sorry, family. Let me stop this and I'm going to reshare this. And I'm going to pull up. I'm going to just hit entire screen this time so that our family can get this. Okay, so now we're going to go into these different measures that I put together. And I want you to pay close attention to this. This is a motif that I designed for our family. And if you see it here, notice it says, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. This is a declaration coming from chapter 1. Now remember, our subject matter is in relation to dealing with the chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death, and the mystery of deific life. These 3 degrees of unfoldment coincide with our degrees of the journey through the soul, coming from, bestiality into consciousness and consciousness into felicity. It's a symbology that has to do with degrees of mastery. They tried to take these concepts in masonry and call them 3 steps on the master's carpet. We call them initiation, illumination, and perfection. But it is man that go through these degrees. And that is why, we go back up. If we are going in a clockwise motion and we start from the bottom here, ye men, as a man, you come out of what we call just following carnal law, which is, you see chariot right here. Allah say he has given a law or open way to every people, be it Muslims, Christians, Hebrews, whatever you want to call them. He told them that he has given each people their open way, and he gave the Moors their law as well. We got 7 acts in our divine constitution. This is the physical law that governs the carnal manifest. So man is governed by this and bound by this law being in the flesh. But it only preps him for another stage. Our chairman gave us the degree and an angel number as we relate to swift angels. You see, notice the process of evolution, coming from general laws into supreme laws. And as an angel, you see the word tariqat. Tariqat is a word that means path. It also has to do with path that lead to a stairway that leads to heaven. In other words, a symbolic path, of degrees in life that takes you into what they would call in Kemet, the Amduat. We came from the stars and so shall we return. At least our ancestors taught that. So that's what these paths, or these different orders, as they would call them in Sufism, or Tasawwuf, represent. These are the stages that angels go through. It don't matter which school you come through, the Muridiyya, the Qadriyya, we can go on and name a whole bunch of them. But we know we have 7 adept degrees as our tariqat. that allow us to unfold, into the process of what we call the natural way of Allah, Sibigatala, the way of the Sabians. You see? So one unfolds as an angel and then one becomes a cherubim, because now you know how to be a chief protector of your creed, just like everybody else was a chief protector of their creed. And this protection has to do with the mind, standing in defense of the gospel and breaking the God spell of being under idol gods and so forth and so on. Remember, as man unfolded, God unfolded. So hakikat, as you can see it here, it means the truth, man himself being the truth. So everything you learn in these different tarikats or these orders are to bring you into the realm that you are the truth. And then the last stage is modified, where one is intoxicated with divine law and being one with the great God Allah through deific will, where you forget about yourself. This is called fanna, annihilation of what you think is the best, and you don't even say there's no God but Allah at this point. You say, basically, there's only Allah. You see, other illas don't matter. So if you look here, you notice man have come from a state of being man to an angel, cherubim, and seraphim. And to be seraphim, as it relates to Marifat, in chapter 1, it say this is talking about the spirit of the Almighty God Allah. But man is being guided, under the solar stars and so forth and so on. They have influence over us. If you look closer inside this circle, because the circle is the adept symbol that our prophet brought us, having a scimitar above the star. And you see from the bottom, it says swift angel, but it says al-insan. Insan is a name for man. And if you look around the star, you would notice it has, Nasut, Malikut, Jabarut, Lahut, and then Hahut. This is dealing with the star alone. And if you count as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 2 together, Hahut, is really fused. That's third heaven. So that's 6. And then you have above the scimitar what we call Zat. Z-A-T or D-H-A-T. The Zat in the middle of the Bat is what they call that. That's often seen and depicted as a dot in the middle of a circle. Comedically, that's actually a symbol of Ra, divine light. So we have the spirit of the Almighty God Allah. Again, seraphim. This is the adept degree. But if you count these measures in relation to dealing with the stars, you really see what we call, the constellation of the Big Dipper, which consists of 7 stars. And the 7 stars make up a scimitar that rotates around the polarises. Y'all seen me show that symbol many times. Those 7 stars are symbolic to 7 spirits. Also, the 7 souls of Ra comedically. The souls of Ra was represented by the scimitar. The kafesh or the mesketi. Let us go into some of these measures. In our presentation, we had the 3 degrees of life. The chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death, and the mystery of deific life. In relation to dealing with the chemistry of mortal life, this concerns the physical body and biological processes rooted in matter, cells, chemistry. It represents growth, development, and physical experience. This is the first gateway into embodied existence, the physical. This will pass away. You see? The ministry of death, being the 2nd degree, is the law of dissolution and transformation, or passage from the physical form to subtle existence. So you're getting ready to lose, the connection to the manifest. And these are actually stages of soul. It teaches impermanence and renewal and functions as the balancing force in cosmic cycles. When you leave here in your ministry of death, it will cause symbolic cataclysmic events. Will be influenced, by paradigm shifts as a result of the way you live your life. Let that marinate a bit. Now, the mystery of deific life is dealing with the realm of divine consciousness, life beyond the physical form, limitation and decay, the seat of a higher intelligence and spiritual will, ultimate union with the source, the deific will, right? The eternal. That's the mystery. Want to give honors to our beloved National Grand Sheikh Emeritus, Dr. Serapis Amin-Ra-El, who has unfolded through these various different degrees, now working upon the plane of soul. Now rotating, in that expression among the ancestors, being justice, taking its course. That scimitar. Our flag is planted in the center of the universe, Moorish kin, that scimitar and that star. It's been there. It's called the mouth of God, Kemetically. So the 3 degrees as a continuum, again, deals with mortal life, anchored in this physical body, and death, a gateway, not an end. Deific life, the realization of eternal identity. And all 3 form a cycle of transformation. It's no different, than a caterpillar becoming a butterfly and the metamorphosis that the caterpillar has to go through. These 3 degrees of life as orders of being, dealing with what we call a comparative esoteric framework. This is where we go back to the chemistry of mortal life as it deals with man and Adam, as we spoke of earlier. And then that ministry of death corresponds again with cherubim. That mystery of deific life corresponds, with seraphim. You see how powerful these lessons our Holy Prophet brought to us, so we know the ladder that man is to climb upon. This is all dealing with belief, faith, and fruition. This is all dealing with coming through faith, hope, and love, or wisdom, will, and love. Same degree. That's the hammer of repetition being utilized, so that this truth can be pounded into our consciousness and be made a part of each and every other part of our being. The chemistry of mortal life as it relates to man, again, this is the physical embodiment of biological processes, growth, material experience, sensory world, and it represents mortality and limitation. This is what we learn about ourselves and learn that man is not a mere body. This earthbound atom, so to speak. You see, earthborn being of what they call nefesh, the breath. Where one navigates the physical plane, a symbol of incarnated divine spark. This is why we were told in chapter 1, why was man given a soul? So that he might function upon the plane of soul. Why was spirit man given a body of flesh? That he might function upon the plane of things made manifest. All of this has to do with the same degrees. The chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death. Because we know that when we are able to go into the plane of soul, we get the lesson and the blessings of the ancestors that have ascended as masters. They can teach us from the plane of ancestry or the ethers of our native plane. again, the ministry of death, as it relates to the degree of cherubim, where one learns to stand in defense. This is the purpose of the ministry of death. We can defend our people better from the plane of soul. This is why Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, in the plane of soul, the enemy can't hide. But yet also dealing with what we call a dissolution or judgment and transformation, passage from formlessness, or guardian of thresholds and transitions. As cherubim, we become guardians of sacred boundaries. We can cross the borderland at will. The Eden gate. We got the keys to the gate. In fact, Eden, the Garden of Eden, is a code word for third heaven. We have the keys to enter into third heaven, which is the realm of the seraphim. If you know anything about the 9 orders of angels, within that, you're going to see cherubim and seraphim. So the bearers of knowledge, separation, and transition, this symbolizes the law that transforms and tests. So when we go into the mystery of deific life again, a seraphim, this mystery of deific life is in relation to divine consciousness, unending life, pure energy beyond death and form, the seat of higher intelligence and unity. Seraphim represent fiery beings nearest to the throne, embodiments of pure divine fire, agents of purification and deification. We talk about the adept deification of man, the chemistry, the ministry, and the mystery. We know chemistry also has to do with divine alchemy, transmuting oneself from a base nature into gold. And we know that has to do with a golden cord, don't it? So this threefold ladder, again, deals with the human or the mortal realm, the cherubim realm and transformational, judgmental realm, into seraphim, which is divine realm, and these correspond to what we call the body, soul, and spirit, matter, transition, and divinity, and earth, the threshold, and heaven. You see, we got one more measure in the phase of this as it relates to these things. So these 3 degrees of life, as it relates to the Kemetic order, the Kemetic comparative framework, the chemistry of mortal life deals with what we call the Remetch or the Remetchiu, which is called the human being. The human being was known as Remet and being depicted as such. If you ever looked at what we call determinatives, the ministry of death takes place in what we call the Musketiu. Like I told you earlier, the Duat, guardians. That's the scimitar that rotates in the Big Dipper. That's Musketi. That's what it's called. The leg of the bull, or even Kafesh. This is a ministry in death. This is why I tell you that when we leave the plane of things made manifest, the only thing that we leave behind is our ways, acts, and deeds. And we can defend our people based upon how well we live in this world. Our actions that we demonstrated can become, spirits of protection for people if you gave the right wisdom. Like how our holy prophet has secured us through the protection of his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And the mystery of deific life, Kemetically would represent, the Necheru or the divine ones. That's the mystery, that you were divine all alone, that you was one with your great God all alone, even though those on the plane of the manifest couldn't see that. They can only see what you were worth, according to what it is, that you had to offer of your blood, sweat, and years and tears. They couldn't see the God in you. So chemistry of mortal life, as it relates to the remechi or remech, this deals with, again, physical embodiment, flesh, which is also known as the cat. We often hear about in our measure in regards to dealing with the cat, the body being an empty cat, and don't have no altar fires. Man is more than the body and the soul now, but this is dealing with your biological makeup, governed by the earthly forces and cyclo or renewal, the realm of sensory existence and time. We are recycled through those that we teach in one way, just as we are recycled to, the process of reproduction. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, his knowledge has been recycled through us. A paradigm shift has taken place as a result of his knowledge in us. If we have taken that knowledge in and applied it and made it applicable to ourselves as scientists. So the remech, which is the human or the embodied soul, is composed of what we call the ka, the ba, and the kat, and what we call the ib. We know ka and ba represent the concepts of soul that existed in Kemet. Kat represents the body, which, the soul and the spirit is enshrined in, so to speak. And the ib, or the ab, which represents the heart, the spiritual heart, the consciousness in man, the true lifeline in man. The remet, or the human, is a navigator of this earthly plane that we call Ta. Carrier of divine potential in material form. You are a carrier of divine information through your DNA, information that links you back to the gods. So we have also the ministry of death from a Kemetic aspect. This is the Mesketiu, the Duat, Amduat. Remember I told you this is where one is moving with the guardians. The Mesketiu consists of 7 spirits, or guardians of the Duat. The ministry of death deals with the passage from formlessness and the processes, again, of dissolution, judgment, and transformation, movement through the Amduat gates. And that's a cyclic pattern. Mesketiu and Duat guardians represents the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, symbolizing transition, the guardians of thresholds between Ta, Earth, and the Duat. Within the star, entities who test, purify, and guide the soul. That's that Hierophant, or many Hierophants. So you see how connected we are to the macrocosm as it relates to these symbols. Mystery of deific life, the Necheru. The mystery of deific life again deals with the realm of pure consciousness, the Ak state. You say Ak in Arabic or Hebrew, we saying brother. But Ak actually represent what we call flesh divine, from the Kemetic aspect. Life beyond decay, limitation or time, union with primordial essence. Linking your wheel up with the deific wheel, right? Deific tie. Necheru, divine intelligence. Intelligence says forces of cosmic order. Ma'at, manifestations of eternal light. Art and will, symbols of perfected being and immortality. See, this is what we mean when we say initiation, illumination, and perfection. Chemistry, ministry, mystery. It don't get no plainer than that. And last but not least, as a Kemetic ladder of ascent, now we understand how to remet to you, or to remet the physical realm of Ta. And Mesketiu, the guardians of transformational realm of the Duat, comes into expressing themselves as Necheru, the realm of eternal light. Amentet, Aket. See, we were talking about that. And we know Ament or Amenti which is a part and parcel of my name, it has to do with that which you cannot be able to see with the physical eye until it manifests itself through a vessel that is on the plane of things made manifest. A mint represents the highest state of your consciousness, as well as Aket. So the correspondences to this relates to Kat, Ba, and Ak. Same degrees: earth, the threshold, and divine horizon. Matter, transformation, and deification. This is what life is spent to build, Moorish kin. This is the knowledge and the wisdom that YEHOSHUA had, that gave him the ability to transmute at will. He was able to build himself up and become as such. So it don't get no plainer than the truth. It don't get no plainer than the truth, family. We have given you the process how to make progress, in your life. And we call this moving from black fez degrees that our people love to don to red fez degrees, into the white fez degree. And these represent different stages or states of consciousness. The human condition, earthly life, again, going through the ministry of death, then again to the divine light being, pure illumination, a crown of majesty, higher wisdom, completion of alchemical ascent, life beyond the physical and beyond death, attainment of the Ak, a luminous eternal spirit. That's what we talking about. Union with the divine source, nature, consciousness. That's your true nature. Ak, a transfigured spirit, flesh divine. Aket, the horizon of divine manifestation. Neteru, divine intelligences. You see the progress of evolution. You be amongst the immortal ones. That third degree. Spirit. We talking about spirit and light. You're no longer moving on a sluggish plane. So you come from a foundational discipline through fire, trials, and purification into illumination and mastery. This is what our holy prophet YEHOSHUA again was trying to teach us. This is what Prophet Noble Drew Ali, our holy prophet, was trying to teach us. This is what YEHOSHUA, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, this is what they were trying to teach us. This is what it means to truly appear fully materialized. See, we think meaning to fully materialize has to do with dealing with in the manifest. That's a degree too, but to truly be fully materialized is to truly be fully materialized in the expression of what we call flesh divine. Being the God that you are. So we just want to say gratitude with a divine attitude, Moorish kin. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and open up the floor so that we can hear from our Moorish family. Praise be to Allah, Islamism without the schism. And for everybody that's, in the comments, we give honors to y'all. And be sure to like and share this video. So the floor is open, Moors. Star 6 your phone. Our subject matter, is in this we have the chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death, and the mystery of deific life. Islamism without the schism. The floor is open. Go on, Brother Justice.
Praise Allah. Honor to you, National Grand Sheikh, sir, sir, for the great class tonight. Honor to all of those who assist you on the class, but honor to the Act 1. Always special honor to our
National Grand Sheik and our National Grand Chamber of Moorish America, I have power to make law, enforce law with the system of the prophet and the grand body of Moorish America. And honor to our National Assistant Grand Sheik, because the Assistant Grand Sheik is the Assistant Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is normal for the citizens of Moorish America. When the prophet did say, I brought you everything it takes to save a nation, I take it and say it as well. Get you to think and just say it yourself. Praise Allah unto our holy prophet. You know, Dr. Shahid, sir, this has been a very great and divine class, and I've learned through the years that it always good to speak the truth before doing anything, because this is what makes you free, and it leaves you with a very clear and divine conscience and with no guilt about anything. You know, during your class, I have been dealing with a few things and kind of dozed off a little bit from time to time, listening as good as I possibly can. And you know, a few things that really were touching me, because when you look at this subject matter, it's like I've seen this before. And it's in this, we have the chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death, the mystery of the infant life. And, you know, I was looking at the things I've seen, and I don't mind being taught or corrected, but you know, praise Allah, honor to the Holy Prophet, Noble Ali. And I was listening to you when you was talking about chemistry and ministry and mystery, and the thing that was in me and it helped me to understand more and more, this is why there is no fear or death, because it's a journey. And it also helped me understand that why at times so many get caught up in 3 words, I love you. Because there's a chemistry and a minister and a mystery in that as well. Because we learned that the power is above the neck, not below it. We understand that there's different, if you allow me to say that, there's different types of behaviors get caught up in the thing what we call love. But in and everything that we do, and even the things that we don't understand, and some things may seem shocking to people, but nothing shocks me anymore. Being home here in the most powerful government, the Moorish American government, like this class tonight don't shock me, but it is much to learn and continue to understand. But it don't surprise me. It don't surprise me maybe over 1 million years or so that man has been existing. Because like I said, and praise Allah unto the Holy Prophet Noble Ali, I speak the truth on that, because I've seen and heard a little of this, and it's a blessing for me that you demonstrate in this class tonight. Because when I talk about that, I love you, it was part of that, it was in that. And when you talked about chemistry and ministry and mystery, like I said, I got no proof, but I've seen and heard this before. And it ain't strange tonight that you demonstrate in this class, sir. It ain't strange at all to me. And although I may not have the words or could not put it the way that I've have heard it before or seen it before, it's the same with the night. I may not have the words to put it like the way that my mind may be thinking, but I can assure you, I get it. May take some time to put a point here and there, but I get it, because it's just leaves me like this, reminding myself of who made me, Allah, the great God of the universe. And also, this helps me to understand, I'm getting ready to go, sir, because I don't want to bore anyone. This also helped me to understand why Allah put our whole proper nose draw, they put men and women in the positions that they're in. And even if some have to be removed, it helps me understand why they have to be removed. And I praise Allah and I'm trying to hold the proper nose draw this for you bringing this very powerful class tonight. And this is gonna help this is gonna help me a whole lot, not just here in the most powerful government in the world, but things that is going on outside, so that now my eyes will see more spiritually than it would be color the things that are taking place, and it helps me to understand more at a higher degree why it's taking place. And I'm very thankful for this class tonight, and it helps me understand more about that I love you, and also understand the chemistry and the ministry and mystery when it comes to the red, white, and black feathers. But the prophet said there were the red feathers. But we still have knowledge of the white and black feathers. Again, back to who made you and being a God and still learning and still understanding. And then Elohim, knowing that I'm responsible for myself. And it's me, it is I who have to fix self. That's why the prophet say, study self. And when you study it, study some more. If you've done it 30, 40, 50 years, study some more. When do it end? Never. Just like we can't die. Allah made us. And honor to you for this great class, sir. It's been a very powerful and great class, and a class that anyone that truly loves Allah and the Holy Prophet knows draw should never even have the thought about fear of death anymore. Islam and peace, sir.
You hear me, Brother Justice?
I hear you now, sir.
Okay, gratitude. Islamism without the schism. Gratitude for the measure. And praise be to Allah. And if you study them different steps, you'll notice that, you can be guided into the heights of your divinity. Islamism without the schism. That's all of us. Praise be to Allah. Islam, is there any other more who would like to exercise their 5? Star 6 your phone. The floor is open. All right, we'll get Islam. Gratitude, Consul General. Go ahead, Goddess.
Gratitude, Consul General. I'll be quick about it. The engineer, for the honors has already been given. And Dr. Shaheed, gratitude for this powerful class. As always, I tell you, you touched on so many different things, and like Dr. Justice said, I tell you, you really helped me to understand some of the things that I had heard, and but definitely going back and listen to the playback, and that's why I praise Allah that we do have a playback that we can go back to, because we can because we can listen to it and stop it and meditate on what you have said, and definitely gonna look at this at the diagram that you had up there for us to look at. But the couple of things that stood out for me, you talked about the Khalifa, talked about Adam, the different Adams, and I had heard it before, and but you just took it deeper for me. And when you say that Adam means the new cycle, new beginning, and you talked about how there was many Adams, and I had heard you speak on that before. And then you talked about the Adam Catman. We used to talk about that when we used to have meetings, and you talk about how Adam Catman was made. That one, he was the one that was made in the image of the great God Allah. In other words, in the image of Allah, who is the spirit. And then when you talked about, you touched on the Anunnakis, and I was so glad you talked on that and got to go back and do some of my research too, because when I heard about the Anunnakis, my question was, because I was told, and you know who I don't even have to call no names, but they talk about the Anunnaki and how talk about the Anunnaki built us, made us slaves, and we was the harvest gold to help them to go back and fix their planet and all that type of stuff. And then they talk about the 9 ether people, and it's a lot. But my question had always been, who was over the Anunnaki? And like you said, the Anunnaki, they had a supreme God that they honored. But see, our people don't tell us all that. But anyway, this is just powerful. It is up to me to do my own research, like you teach us, like you have taught me. I got to go back and do my research on some of these things. And if I have questions, I know what your number is. And also, you talked about Iblis, how he, and I didn't heard you talk about him many times, how he wouldn't bow down to the Allah in man, and how you talk about that's the mindset. And we can see that now. That mindset is still here because it tries to demonize, like you say, Allah's true people who are out there teaching the truth and putting the truth out there. That mindset, that Iblis mindset, always will try to come against the teachings of our holy prophet and try to, demonize your character to get people not to listen to you or whatnot. But we who know the teachings of our prophet, we who know who made us, see, we recognize that old spirit. It ain't nothing new under the sun. We recognize that old mindset, and we see it, and we recognize it, and we know it when we run into it, and we know how to deal with it too. It's wrong. So gratitude, God, man. Like I say, this is a powerful, powerful class. Gratitude for putting this information out. Definitely gonna listen to the playback over and over again and do my research. And gratitude, God, man. Keep doing what you're doing. And gratitude for letting me share. Peace and love.
Gratitude and peace and love to you as well, sister, for that drawing. Praise be to Allah. That's the chemistry, the ministry, and the mystery as it relates to our history. Islam. Well, all right, Consul General, Texas Territory / Vice Consul General, Florida. Where you at, Grand Man?
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Gratitude for following me. This is Dr. Marlon L. Praise and honor. Heavenly givers. But I will reiterate all praises to the great God Allah. And the highest honor to his prophet, our prophet, Prophet Noble Dwali, and high honor to our Morris American government. I mean, man, it's a powerful class. Highly enlightening. As all of your classes, but as we go along, we elevate, and so when I hear this class and I observe, I observe it like a hammer, that tool that we use in the workshop of the mind, and you representing that tool, because you're coming straight from Spirit Van, and you laid it out plain. I mean, it's a plainer today than I say some time ago. Because that's the way it is. You know what I mean? As like in our Quran speaks, man's highest ideal is his God. You know what I mean? Today, his God may not be his God tomorrow. Because we elevate. You know what I mean? We ascend. You know, and so as we expand our consciousness, you know what I mean, we can perceive more of who we are, where we fit into the grand scheme of this life. You know, when he talks about that microcosm, you know, in the microcosm, you know, I tell you, I mean, you about so much on the manifest, and I advise, I suggest anyone in the sound of our voices to, I mean, go back on the playback, because, I mean, you put it out there. I mean, and this is what it's all about. This is how we grow. You know what I mean? We understand that we are spirit man. You know what I mean? But we have to go into that consciously. You know, and it ain't no fantasy. It's not a myth. This is the reality of it. Because he's talking about the mind of man. You know, praise the Lord. You can put it so plainly. And I just appreciate being a student, you know, here in this most American government, and striving as we strive to be the message that we bring, to be that which we were created to be. You know what I mean? Like I said, thousands of atoms. You know, so we know we have been here before. I mean, if we have any elevated knowledge, we know that we've been here before. You know, and since we were prophesied for years, thousands of years, so we know that we represent a force of the great God of love. You know, and so, but here in this North American government, this is the center. This represents the center of our goal. So I just expect all of those that have a leader here in this North American government, come and aid your North American government. Because this is what it's all about. And gratitude, God, man. Very powerful class. And I wrote a lot of notes, so I'm not going to roll on it. But praise the Lord. I honor to you. His love and peace.
And gratitude for the magic, brother. We give honor for your expression. Demonstrating power, clarity, and authority. All right, Islam. The floor is still open, Moors. I would like to speak on this subject matter. In this, we have the chemistry of mortal life, the ministry of death, and the mystery of deific life. What is your understanding of this? Islam, brother.
The thing is, it's about unfolding because, basically that's who we are. It's our birthright. We just got thrown off our banner, to get the plan that, and when you break it down, it reinforces the fact that we are who we are. We like I say sometimes, sometimes we like a wave expressing itself, but when we calm back down and when you look at it, it's still we are, as our Creator says, like our children said, domain.
You know, so it's in our nature to be good. It's in our nature, our Constitution is our nature. You know, our divine Constitution. You know, our theocratic government. Anything that's on the manifest represents the angel that was sent forth to raise the confidence of our people. And the prophet told us that, you know, they're big. You see, and being black and thinking you black and colors and all these things right here, and another man ruling your household, you know, we don't even have a culture. So when we understand that, you know, we are unfolding into ourselves. You know, it's not bringing something in from there to there, but we are actually unfolding into ourselves. You know, just listening to the lesson. You know, and understanding that we are the divine people. And I'm just constantly learning because when I hear things that I haven't heard, you know, and then when it resonates, I know that this is part of my lesson. So, you know, I believe in the vision, you know, and I understand that, you know, that it's my nature to do it. Because, you know, it's about position now. You know, it's time for the Moors to do what they do and take position, you know, that they all work in harmony. It's so much to say. But the thing is that unfolding, you know, like a lot of people say, the journey, the way that the destination, because I was more, you know, and I know what I've been through. And when I smile at myself, I'm like, yeah, you're on the right path. You know, this is the lesson. Yeah, this is part of your unfolding. You know, it's the lesson one. You know, it's beautiful, though. It's a beautiful piece of lesson they taught.
And Islam. Yeah, when you get a chance, brother, reach out to me after the class, mashallah. But Islamism without the schism, grand drawing, brother, powerful measure. All right. Islam. Is there any other more who would like to come forth and exercise their fire before we open up the floor for our officials?
Islam.
Islam, brother.
Islam. Prime Minister that's on the Wine-Based Bay, Oklahoma territory. Swift Angel number 151. Let me ride in perfect praise of our praise, honor, and glory to our Father God Allah. If Abdul Ali, if I'm at one, our flag, ensigns, emblems, Swift Angels, Mufti, and everything that is Moorish Islam. For the gist of the class, what I've seen is, then with the title and the subject matter, the mystery. I don't remember the exact title, but what I see is that realizing that you're not Negro, colored, or black, and coming into a realization that you have a nationality and you are made in the direct image of the great God Allah, right? And then once you realize that, you come into a place of demonstrating that, meaning bringing about the fruits of you are being who you are, who your ancient forefathers were. These were you spoke about Adam Kaiman being the first man. These were our ancestors who were given the responsibility of naming a tree, a dog, a horse, a horse, naming these things, right? And coming into that fruition or coming into that realization of you being who you are, this brings about an aspect of manifesting this. And in that, this is at the point to where, you know, it's time to demonstrate being the ruler of the land. And that's the part that Moorish Americans are on the brink of doing that, you know, and the schism that this came about is how to do it. And so in manifesting Moorish America, in manifesting the Moorish American National, the Moorish American Muslim, this is demonstrating a rulership of the land. And this is where, you know, us endeavoring into that study, into that deal. Because it's one thing to say that we're Moorish American, but then when you have other bodies who may have certain jurisdictional aspects that they're demonstrating in, it's almost like an undermining of that. Because the title to the vast estate has been given back to us. But in receiving that, we have to come into the fruition of where we demonstrating that rulership. You know, a lot of us have things that has been allotted to us, but as far as going about manifesting and taking ownership and rulership of that, we've yet come to that point. But this is the point in time to where it's needed, because the prophet reminded us that we are the United States' greatest interior friend. So realizing that we're Moorish Americans, and then manifesting our 5 highest principles, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, this is what's going to bring the balance. You know, bring the balance to the injustices, bring the balance to the lack of truth in areas that is needed. Because he said when we get our lessons, we're gonna get these lessons and take it back and set our brothers straight in the east, because we've come through so much stuff. So just by our suffering, you know, being mistreated, knowing how that feels, and being able to recognize it, you know, this gives us an advantage in the aspect of knowing how to administrate justice, you know. So I think this is a grand measure, and at the same time too, I think it's that time to where we start endeavoring into demonstrating that rulership, not just in theory or in speaking, but in practicality, in real time. Peace and love. Gratitude for allowing me to express my message. Peace and love.
Islam. And we give honors to the measure. And in the same holy breath, we say, I define this as Allah's law, that you must first be a good follower in order to become a great leader, to be a ruler. You know, without the people following, you'll never have a nation ruling. And also, if you keep pulling bricks out of the pyramid, you'll never complete the building of it. You know, and that's wisdom to those who are basically seeking to be wise. So Islamism without the schism, and at this time, we're going to call on our officials, starting with Sister Alcetta Moonell. Islam, you there, sister? Okay, praise be to Allah. Well, all right. Well, let us call forth then our National Grand Mufti, Dr. Khanshu Ma'ak Heru Bey. Islam, you there, Grand Man? Islamism without the schism.
I love Islam. We rise, giving our thanksgiving, adoration, worship, and praise to our Father God, Allah, the great God of the universe, most beneficent and most wise. And we give the highest honors we can give to his prophet, the last prophet in these days and in these times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali, the savior of humanity. We give honors to his forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and honors to his government, our government, the Moorish American government, the government in which we live. We give honors to the officials of this said government, our divine ministers with angels, our mufti, our royal council, our secretaries. We give honor to our citizens, the Moorish Americans. We give honor to our flag and our divine constitution and bylaws, our Holy Quran, our Grand National Seal, our Grand National Emblem, our Book of Fire, the Exhuman of a Nation. We give honor to everything that is Moorish. We give a special honor to our National Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shadur, and we give leadership as well for bringing forth this Moorish perspective this evening. We give honors to all of our Moorish kin who have spoken before us, to our Moorish kin that will speak after us. We give honors to you, angels. We continue to give the honors where they're due and honoring all true and divine prophets. And we give honors to our ancestors as they have come before us, leading the way. We are them today without doubt or contradiction, because no one has the power to change man from his descent nature. And praise the Lord for that. And it's been a grand prayer, Malcolm, and as one said, you set out many jewels, as we know, one is supposed to conform himself to the questionnaire, and this is where that thought pattern comes in as far as confirming what, meaning making true. And so when we look at Prophet talking about how the flag was over 100,000 years old, and how he talked about the more cleared the way for civilization, and at one time the fruit was so large and things like that, things that we don't see today. You brought about our understanding or showing us how, we can speak on that and be confident in that, what our prophet was talking about. Because we've been here and we know time never was when man was not. But these things allow one to be able to dwell into a mode of not just confidence, but reassurance on one is maneuvering through the lessons that our prophet brought us, because he was divinely prepared. And as we look at, we in the age of the internet, where everything is pretty much at your fingertips, but the prophet didn't have the internet. And all these things that he brought forth, all of the knowledge that he has that is showing true and 100% in this day when we can go look it up, he brought it without all of that. And so that lets one know that we're working with divinity here. And as we look at this, really, the stages of metamorphosis is what I was talking about, how one goes through, life, and the ministry of death, and the mystery of that deific life. We talk about the transformation for us as a people. When we talk about, or when the prophet is talking about the vast estate, we see the vast estate when we recognize that Allah, man, was. When we recognize that as we are God, and we say, okay, one is a God, then you can see, okay, this is where the vast estate comes in, because you deal with more than just a physical thought pattern. Your state, our state, stands beyond the physical or material realm and into the realm of thought. Of what we call the soul plane, and even into the spirit plane. And this is vast. The state for those who understand that they are God, that they are one with their Father God Allah, that they are one with the deific will, that they are one with all things. That there's a golden cord that binds every living thing to every other living thing. And when one gets that drawn, then you can say, oh, yeah, the state is at. Way beyond what one's thinking about on a physical realm. You know, one to try to get you caught up in an ice wall and land beyond the ice wall and you try to get caught up in the UFOs and these demonstrations. And everything is trying to get you caught up in a physical manifest. But we go way beyond that. Way beyond those types of concepts. You know, as he was demonstrating about Polaris and the Big Dipper and how these symbols, you know, are signals within the mind that bring one back. This is where, you know, when one looked in the Willie Lynch papers and he was talking about, well, you know, you can have these ones enslaved 300 or plus more years. But if these ones get a hold of a small historical basis, a small substantial historical basis, their mind can be corrected. It'll correct on itself. And this is what we're getting right now. We're getting the historical basis through our proper lessons so that our minds can correct itself. So we can come out of that Willie Lynch program. We can come out of the slave thought pattern. We can come out of the thought pattern of mere mortal men. You know, whose wisdom and knowledge only lasts as long as one is alive. But when we get back to our thought pattern, then we know the ancestors is with us. You know, we know we can go within and listen to the voice of God who speaks to man through man. We know that we got connection to things that's way beyond a carnal faith. And so that concept, that understanding that one draws upon, allows us to move forward in an aspect and be able to create things that is unfathomable to the finite mind, because those ones is still concentrated on what's right here, what they see with their fleshly eyes, and not even really having a concept that you don't even see with your eyes, you don't even hear with your ears. That all those things are impulses that are sent electrically to the brain, and the brain, the thought pattern, is what interprets those electrical impulses that come through the senses. So what you're seeing or what you are experiencing is still based upon your thought, based upon your thinking apparatus. And when we can, you know, take that thinking apparatus and expand it through these divine lessons, these holy and divine lessons, you know, our estate becomes even more greater. It becomes vast. You know, our concept becomes greater in an understanding that one day we was crawling like the caterpillar, and then one went away for a minute and came back flying, and the other caterpillar was like, "Is that you? You know, man, what happened to you? I thought you was crawling with the rest of us. How did you get to such a state?" It's got to be a miracle. It's got to be miraculous, because you don't look like the one that we used to see. And where'd you get some wings from? And that's what we drawing off of in this lesson, that, you know, one is in a dead state, crawling on the ground with a thought pattern of Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian, etc. So when one goes into the lesson, the cocoon of our prophet, then you could come out. And once you let that thing nourish you, you can come out flying, soaring, you know, with that deific light, you know, with the ability to transmute from carnal to divine at will. And so just give you honor for this class this evening, Dr. Shaheed, Dr. Grand Sheik, and we give honors to all of our Moorish kin who are before us, and to our Moorish kin that will speak after us. We give honors to you, and we give honor to all of our Moorish kin for being here with us, for giving us the time, attention, and respect. We love you. Islam and peace. And once again, honors to our Bachelor Grand Sheik Emeritus. We know you're working with us right now, demonstrating love is Allah, Islam.
That's right, Islam. Yeah, our sheik, demonstrated from the measure. He said, I'm standing on it. And we know that's the thought that our sheik had, when he was crossing the borderland at will. I'm standing on it. We know exactly what you was demonstrating, Sheik. Gratitude, Grand Mufti, for that love thought and the various reflections as well. And historicity. We give honors to you. Well, all right. Couldn't have a better brother to secure this nation. Let us call forth our National Grand Secretary of State, Sister Hatshepsut Rakat Ma'at and Pooh, Tutankhamun Bay. Islam, you there, goddess and queen? Islamism.
Islam Morrison, first of all, I want to rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet, Noble Jerome Lee, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Moorish American government, all of our officials, staff, angels, muftis, divine ministers, most especially our Moorish kids. Giving honor to all those Moors that spoke before me, all those Moors that will speak after me. Giving a special honor to our National Assistant Grand Secretary of State, Dr. Benjamin Bay, for opening our meeting according to law. Also, to our Consul General of Texas, Dr. Bay, for taking registration. To our National Grand Sheik Emeritus, to our National Assistant Grand Sheik, Dr. Kuhuru Jehudi Bay and Tribe, giving honor to this Moorish Perspectives class this evening, and to you, National Grand Sheik, as host, Dr. Shadow Menti, and my head is well. This has been such a powerful class, very enlightening, because as our Moorish kids speak about that hammer of repetition, and I think it was Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay that every time we go through these lessons, it's a little bit more as far as a veil having been removed, and definitely in agreement with my Moorish kin in reference to listening again to the playback, being able to even further in depth to make these aspects of the lesson applicable to the self. And I tell you, I had so many paradigm shifts in reference to this. When you were speaking about the word motif, M-O-T-I-F, and recognizing the fact that man is the pattern and the blueprint. Also looking at our prophet being the pattern as far as leaving his footsteps clearly cut as far as what way we're supposed to do according to the dictates of our Creator, our Father God law. And what I was also looking at, how you brought the distinguishing factor coming up here in the West, where they try to have you look at the various effects and lay for the causes. When you're dealing with cosmology and being able to look at the source of creation and how things were brought about here on this manifest according to the way of our ancestors, that was powerful. And when we look at chapter 1, because I saw so much of chapter 1 in our class this evening, coming from Surah 2, ayat 30, demonstrating the remedy or successor of our own race. And the cycle ages that one goes through, that even when the sages met at the beginning of each age to set the pattern and the blueprint for what it is that humanity has got to learn in that particular age, you can see, we recognize the fact that we're looking at spirit being given a soul,
so that he could function on the plane of soul, and the body of flesh so he could function on the plane of things made manifest. And when you look at it, at the fact that spirit man always was, is, and ever. You were speaking about the 17,000 years between the over 100,000 atoms. And again, I was also looking at it from the aspect of what our National Grand Mufti brought about. The prophet said, how old is our flag? It is old. And when he gave the highest number, because of the limited mindset and comprehension of the Moors at that time, he went from 100,000 down to 50,000. Okay, let me give you 10,000. Can you comprehend that number? You know, to show the vastness and the timelessness of us being here with our Creator, our Father God Allah. That was powerful. When I was looking at forgetfulness being man's greatest enemy, forgetting the fact that you and your Creator are one. But also when it spoke about and dealing with that breakdown of the chemistry of mortal life. And you can identify with the cells and things on a manifest level and things of that nature coming from flesh aspect on a manifest. The ministry of death in reference to the soul, and how we know that the essence of the soul is spirit. And so you're able to see the cusp or the balancing between the manifest and also the plane, which is the mystery of deific life. So it's still dealing with the 3-step ladder, you know, coming out of chapter 1 where it speaks about spirit, soul, and flesh, but it gives you the various particles, if you will, of each round of what it is that we have got to go through in our development and going through cycle ages. Back to chapter 1 where it speaks about man tarries many ages until all of his lessons are learned. And this is why victory is assured. So the way that the Creator made us is in direct accord with what our prophet brought to us. You know, and when you're able to see the various degrees, Shariat law, Tariqat, the particular pathway back to your Creator, and Hakikat, dealing with the truth, and the Marifat, dealing with the divinity of the law. We are so truly blessed as a nation of people just to be able to hook it up with our ancestors and what it is that they brought forth. One truth doesn't contradict another truth. And when the more that you do the research within yourself, you are able to see the universal order of things. And then hooking it up with the stars, and there's always an attraction for humanity to be able to look up in the vastness of the universe or the stars or what have you, and you see that connection. And this class actually gives the breakdown and the various languages used over the cycle ages to have man refer back to his source of divinity. So I tell you, there are so many keys and lessons in this class that we don't have time for anything but, you know, being the message that we bring. And in order to do that, we've got to make these lessons, these teachings, applicable to the self so that we could give this to our people and the rest of the nations of the earth. So this has just been such a powerful, when you're able to get a taste of your direct connection to not only your Creator, but the prophets down through the ages, you know, and there is no demarcation line when it comes down to truth or what peoples brought the truth and the various historical time frames, etc., because all of that is combined with that golden cord of love. So much gratitude to you, Dr. Shaheed, for bringing the clarity, making it plain, and also using that hammer, as our prophet is saying, I am going to repeat myself. So gratitude, Moor, for calling me forth. Much peace and love to all of my Moorish kin. Islam.
Islamism without the schism. And the prophet most definitely repeated itself, Grand Secretary of the State, you know, in all this wisdom that he brought forth, expressing itself through us. You know, we the grand body. You know, once we realize that we as a collective are his grand body, you know, then we know that we foundational Moorish Americans. You got people out here saying they foundation and other stuff, but, you know, ain't no foundation in being dead. You know, it's a foundation in being raised from the dead, though. You know, and you can't do that unless you're a Moorish American Muslim. But speaking of ones getting up out of that grave and coming into the light of divinity, you know, let us call on our Grand National Chairman, who most definitely exhumed us as a nation, whole and intact. And ain't nobody slipping. You there, Grand Man?
Man, you call me.
Goodness gracious, couldn't wait to call you, Angel. The number two.
Alpha class. We get paid on to the last 108 days and time. Then I became Super Angel #1. And it was a powerful journey, and it's a powerful subject because I was able to help my family. I was able to help thousands of people, some that I would never even met or seen. The thing about it is, I know it was there because they called me, wrote me, transmitted with me. We just had a powerful journey. So these kind of lessons, well, all the lessons are great. So don't get a misunderstanding. But it takes you right on to the soul plane so that you can be yourself. And this is something here that you can do. You ain't gotta go funeral and all that. You know, you can share it because you are the message that you bring. So it's a powerful class for us. Thank you for knowing who made you. Islamism without a schism. Thank you.
Islamism to you as well, Grand Man. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank the whole tribe of endurance, you know, cherubim and seraphim. You know, wisdom, will, and love. We give honors to all of you, you know, for everything it is that you've demonstrated. And we're going to always give you your flowers while you're here. You know, and flowers beyond the plane of things made manifest. Here, there, and everywhere. Flowers all over the place. You know, we give honors, man, you know, for being able to speak upon these messages, because it's the book of fire. You know, if one want to know where we come up with these demonstrations, I know that's where I get it from. You know, going into the book of fire as a scientist, you know, and looking at everything that has been already peer reviewed and coming forth with more empirical data to support the empirical data that's already on the manifest. Can't nobody deny that. Islamism without the schism. So we give honors to you, Moors, you know, and really pay attention, because this is the ladder upon which man is able to really climb, you know, with the tools that we use in the workshop of the mind, just like YEHOSHUA, where thought is used to build character. But that's what it's about. That being said, January 15, 1929, a warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. When these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet. And if they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. Prophet therefore, subhanAllah, the prophet therefore is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. By order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we bring forth this divine decree. Chapter 25, a holy covenant of the Asiatic nations. Yea, the children of one father provided for by his care, and the breasts of one mother have given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. Moorish movement, divine movement, everlasting movement. You and I tie Islamism without the schism. Peace and love, Moors. We love you.
Muted. Unmuted. This session is no longer being recorded.
Islam. Peace and love. We love you, Moors. And we give honors to our family that checked in as well in social media. Tyrese Bay, Charles Warrior, Born Dog, and all look like AVs, 933. Praise be to Allah for all of y'all. And y'all make sure y'all continue to touch down with us and share these measures so that our family can get some of these treasures. Peace and love, Moors. Islam.